Amara walked into the bank with confidence, her braids swaying gently against her shoulders. It wasn't her first time inside a bank, but it was the first time she was doing something this big, depositing a check worth $50,000. Her father had handed it to her that morning, smiling with pride. "Take this to the bank, baby girl. You've earned it," he said. She clutched the check nervously as she approached the counter. The bank was busy, businessmen in suits, elderly women with passbooks, and young professionals tapping away on their phones. Amara waited patiently in line, rehearsing what she would say. When her turn finally came, she stepped forward and offered a polite smile. "Hi, I'd like to deposit this check," she said, sliding the piece of paper across the counter. The manager on duty, Mr. Harris, happened to be standing nearby. He was a tall, middle-aged man with a stern face and a sharp suit that screamed authority. He glanced at the check, then at Amara, and his eyebrows shot up. "Where did you get this?" His tone was cold, almost accusatory. Amara blinked, taken aback. "It's from my dad," she replied calmly. Mr. Harris frowned. "Your dad gave you a $50,000 check. That's unusual." He chuckled under his breath, then waved over another teller. People in the line began to stare. "Yes, sir," Amara said, her voice shaking slightly now. "I just need to deposit it into my account." The manager didn't budge. "Young lady, we take fraud very seriously here. This check looks suspicious. You can't just walk in with this kind of money." Amara felt her cheeks burn as whispers started spreading behind her. She could feel the judgmental stares, the disbelief in their eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt small, like she didn't belong there. "Sir, it's real. My father. I'm going to need to see some serious proof, Mr. Harris cut her off. "And don't try anything funny. If this is a scam, you're in a lot of trouble." Amara's heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to tell him who her father really was. But something in her told her to stay calm. She didn't know that within minutes, the entire bank, and Mr. Harris himself, would regret every single word he just said. Amara clenched the strap of her purse, trying to keep her composure. She hated scenes, but Mr. Harris wasn't letting up. He took the check, held it to the light dramatically, and then muttered something to another teller. "Call verification," he said under his breath, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "We might have a counterfeit here." Amara's stomach dropped. Counterfeit. She'd never felt so insulted. She took a deep breath and spoke as firmly as she could. "Sir, this check is not fake. My father gave it to me this morning. If you just process it." Mr. Harris raised a hand to silence her. "Miss, I've worked in banking for 25 years. I know what's real and what's not. And this," he tapped the check with his pen, "doesn't add up. You don't just hand a teenager $50,000. The word teenager stung. She was 22, a college graduate, but to him, she was just a young black girl who didn't belong with that kind of money. People in the bank were whispering louder now. A man in a gray suit snickered. An older woman shook her head. Amara felt their eyes crawling over her like she was a criminal. "I'm going to need ID, proof of income, and contact information for whoever wrote this check, Mr. Harris continued. His voice was dripping with arrogance. Amara pulled out her ID and slid it across the counter. "Here. My name is Amara Collins. The account is under my name. Everything matches." He barely glanced at it. "That's not enough. Where does this money come from? Who is your father?" Amara hesitated. Part of her wanted to tell him right then and there. But another part, the calmer, more strategic part, decided against it. She didn't want to sound like she was bragging or making threats. "You'll find out soon," she said quietly, her eyes steady. Mr. Harris smirked. "Oh, I will." Security. 2 uniformed guards walked over, towering behind Amara like she was some sort of criminal mastermind. Her heart pounded, but she didn't flinch. If he wanted drama, he was about to get it, just not the way he expected. Because at that very moment, the glass doors of the bank opened, and a man in an immaculate navy suit walked in, his presence commanding the room like a sudden shift in gravity. Amara's lips curved into the slightest smile. "Daddy's here." The air inside the bank changed the second he walked in. Conversations hushed. Even the guards, who had just approached Amara, instinctively straightened up. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, and radiated authority with every step. His navy suit was perfectly tailored, his gold cufflinks glinting under the bright lights. Amara didn't have to turn around, she already knew. That smooth confidence could only belong to one person, her father, Richard Collins. "Sweetheart," his deep voice rolled through the room like a calm storm, "is everything okay?" Amara turned, relief washing over her face. "Hi, Dad," she said softly, stepping aside as he approached the counter. "Mr. Harris frowned, clearly irritated at the interruption. "Sir, this is a private matter." Richard shot him a glance so sharp it could cut glass. "Private? You've been loudly accusing my daughter of fraud in front of an entire bank." His voice was calm but carried an edge that made everyone freeze. "Mr. Harris blinked. Your daughter?" He glanced between Amara and Richard, confusion written all over his face. "Sir, you don't need to understand," Richard interrupted. "You need to explain why my daughter can't deposit a legitimate check from her own father." Mr. Harris stammered. I was just doing my job. The amount was unusual for someone like her." Richard's eyes narrowed. "Someone like her." His voice dropped to a low, dangerous tone. "What exactly do you mean by that?" The color drained from Harris' face. "And no, I just meant, young people don't usually." "Enough." Richard cut him off. He turned to the guards. "Stand down. She's done nothing wrong." The guards immediately stepped back, looking embarrassed. The whispers in the bank grew louder as realization hit the crowd. Some people even pulled out their phones, pretending not to record. Richard reached into his pocket, pulled out a sleek black wallet, and slid a platinum access card across the counter. The name engraved on it made Harris' jaw drop. Richard Collins, owner and chairman. "I don't just bank here," Richard said slowly, leaning in so Harris could see the truth in his eyes. "I own this bank." The room fell silent. Harris' face turned pale as the weight of his mistake crashed down on him. Amara stood tall now, her humiliation melting into quiet satisfaction. Her father placed a protective arm around her shoulders and said the words that would echo in Harris' ears for years to come. "Now, let's talk about your job." Mr. Harris stood frozen, the color drained from his face like ink spilled on white paper. The whispers around the bank had turned into full-blown murmurs. Every employee behind the counter stared at the scene, wide-eyed. Customers leaned in to catch every word. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore, it was a public reckoning. Richard Collins slid the platinum card back into his wallet and rested his hand calmly on the counter, his gaze never leaving Harris. "You've been working here for what, 25 years?" His voice was smooth, but it carried the weight of a verdict. Yes, sir," Harris stammered, his once commanding tone reduced to a shaky whisper. "And in those 25 years, how many times have you humiliated a customer because you thought they didn't look rich enough?" Richard asked. Harris opened his mouth, then closed it again. His Adam's apple bobbed nervously. "Sir, I swear, I wasn't." "You weren't what?" Richard's voice dropped to a dangerous softness. "Being discriminatory, acting on prejudice, accusing a young woman of fraud because she didn't fit your picture of wealth." The words hit Harris like bullets. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Richard continued, his tone measured but merciless. "This bank was built on trust and respect. Values you clearly don't understand." He turned to Amara with a proud smile. "Sweetheart, thank you for handling this with grace. Most people would have walked out. But you stood your ground." Amara's heart swelled. She had never seen her father like this, calm, powerful, and fiercely protective. Richard faced Harris again. "As of this moment, you are suspended pending a full investigation. Hand over your access badge and office keys." The room went dead silent. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Harris' mouth fell open. "Sir, please, I've dedicated my life to this bank. And yet, you nearly destroyed its reputation in 5 minutes," Richard replied coldly. Two senior employees stepped forward, clearly instructed by Richard with just a glance. They held out their hands for Harris' badge. His trembling fingers fumbled as he unclipped it and placed it down like it weighed 100 pounds. "Escort him out," Richard said firmly. As Harris was led toward the exit, customers shook their heads. Some even clapped quietly. Amara watched him go, her humiliation now replaced by a deep sense of justice. Richard turned back to his daughter and smiled. "Now, let's make that deposit." Amara exhaled slowly as the doors closed behind Harris. The tension in the air melted, replaced by a hushed awe. Employees straightened their uniforms. Customers stared like they were witnessing a scene from a movie. For Amara, the humiliation she felt minutes ago had transformed into something else entirely: strength. Richard guided her to a private office, a space filled with floor-to-ceiling windows and polished mahogany furniture. The manager's nameplate was already gone from the desk. Richard motioned for her to sit while an assistant rushed in with water and nervous smiles. "Are you okay?" Richard asked gently, his stern expression softening as he looked at his daughter. Amara nodded, though her throat tightened. I didn't think it would turn into all that." Richard chuckled softly, pulling his chair closer. "Sweetheart, you handled yourself better than most adults would. You stayed calm. That speaks volumes." She smiled faintly. "I almost lost it, Dad. He made me feel like I didn't belong here, like I was some criminal." Richard's jaw tightened. "And that's why I had to step in. People like Harris forget that respect isn't about what someone looks like, it's about who they are." He leaned back, eyes glinting with pride. "And you're more than qualified to walk into any bank in this country." An employee entered quietly, placing the check on the desk. Richard slid it toward her. "Go ahead, sweetheart. This deposit is yours." Amara signed the slip, her hand steady this time. When she finished, Richard turned to the assistant. "Make sure this is processed immediately, and add a note to her account, VIP priority." "Yes, sir," the assistant replied before hurrying out. Amara laughed softly. "VIP priority? You didn't have to do that." Richard grinned. "Of course I did. You're not just my daughter, you're part of the future of this bank." He paused, then added with a twinkle in his eye, "maybe even its next CEO." Her eyes widened. "Dad," he winked, "dream big, and never let anyone make you feel small." Amara felt warmth spread through her chest. The humiliation, the whispers, the judgment, they were nothing compared to this moment. She wasn't just the girl with the suspicious check. She was Richard Collins' daughter. She was power, grace, and resilience. And as she walked out of the office with her father beside her, heads turned, not in judgment this time, but in respect.